r/ask Reddit. What thing exists but is strange to think about it being out there somewhere right now? Everyone I went to school with is out there, living their own lives. A lot of them will have kids by now. A lot of them will be married. Some will be working their dream jobs, and others will be working jobs they hate. Some will, statistically speaking, have died in some horrific accident. These people who were part of my everyday life for years, decades, in some cases, without really ever being friends, have all got their own world in which they're the central character. That's nuts to me. Occasionally I think about them as they were at 5 years old, and wonder if they think of me. I wonder if I've ever walked past them on the street without realizing. I wonder if I've ever upvoted them on Reddit without even knowing. I wonder if they've ever read my stuff, or if I've bought a product that they worked on. I wonder if our lives have ever intersected since, no matter how briefly. I also think about this, like a lot. It is crazy that we can spend so much time with people and then one day just never see each other again, but we know that they are just living their own life. It's crazier to me to think that most people you pass on the street, you'll never see again in your entire life. And that they have their own completely separate reality. Like right now they're just doing what they do. It blows my mind. Sometimes I think about celebrities like that too. What are they doing right this minute? Or imagining the actor actually acting the scene and what their thoughts are. What they did afterwards. Who they go home to and hang out with. I think you get the picture. There are hamsters in nature somewhere. I find that hard to imagine. Oh my god, you're totally right. They are native to Syria. Makes it harder to believe that there is a wild population. There are also hamster species native to Central Asia, Siberia and parts of the Caucasus, of which I believe only 2 are commonly kept as pets. But you know, they're all hamsters. All the stories you are in and don't know about, like how many strangers tell the story of the time they watched you walked into a pole, or you pissed them off while you were driving, etc. It's mad to think how many people know you exist through these mini stories people tell. I sometimes attend reenactment events and festivals dressed as a pirate. Years ago I went to one such event and there was a young person there. I think he was about 16 at the time, and he didn't have a ride home, so I offered him a ride. I had to stop by the grocery store on the way and he was a little nervous going into the store with someone who was dressed like a pirate. For me it was just something I do sometimes. When we got to the checkout, the guy at the register asked me, "Why are you dressed like a pirate?" I just quipped off the cuff, "Why aren't you dressed like a pirate?" I paid for my items and then took the young man home and didn't think about it ever again. That is until last spring, when I was at an event and saw the same young man, now not as young, and he recognized me and introduced me to his friends. His friends who, it turns out, had all heard and retold the story of the store clerk so many times that they could repeat it in their sleep. I had become a legend in his circle of friends because of some off-the-cuff remark I didn't even remember saying. That's so nice you became aware of it afterwards. The circle is now complete. All the dead bodies of people who have been murdered that we don't know about. All the murderers we don't know about. I wonder if anyone has ever done a study to find out how likely it is that the average person knows a murderer or has at least met one. Like knowingly, I've never even seen a murderer, but given how many unsolved crimes there are, maybe there's a decent chance I have unknowingly. When I was a cashier in high school I'd always wonder about this. Just the sheer numbers of people I encountered in fast food and retail, I figured I'd have had to unknowingly encountered at least one. Voyager 1 just drifting away in space forever, comma. It's still speaking to NASA, albeit very slowly, so at least it has someone to talk to. I do love how we personify these little explorers that we send out, like all the people crying at how sad it is that the Mars rover sings happy birthday to itself every year. So many people down here celebrate too, so it's not alone. But it's a machine. We don't care. We just don't want it to be lonely. Come to think of it, that makes the happy birthday song to be the first song played on Mars. The places we used to inhabit are still there, with new people. I happened to look on Zillow at the house I moved out of 25 years ago. The carpet I put in is still there. The tiles I installed are still there. It's so very strange seeing it now. I sometimes like to drive through my childhood neighborhood. It's almost eerie how different it looks to me as an adult, even though not much has changed. Things are so much smaller than I remember. Roads that seemed a mile long as a child are really only maybe a quarter of that. This is what I always couldn't understand. I went past the house I grew up in and thought the same as you. Distances were way off compared to how I remember them. When I was a kid, the family drove down to Florida. We stopped by a convenience store somewhere along the way, here from MTL. As the cashier was serving us, I thought to myself, this is the only time I'll ever see this woman in my whole life, and she has no idea I'm thinking about her right now. And it stuck with me. About 30 years ago, and every now and then I still think about her. And she has no idea. And never will. When I was a kid, I was riding in a car with my mom and I had a strange thought. I wondered if I could actually remember something forever. So the next road sign I saw, I just took a mental snapshot of and told myself to remember it forever. Now every so often something will remind me of that, like your comment, and I'll just be like, huh, still remember it. I have the exact same experience. I remember being about 10 years old at a resort with my family, not unusual or that special as we traveled yearly, and it being a perfect night with my family playing pool and thinking, I wish I could remember this very moment forever, and I also took a mental snapshot. I also think back on it when random things such as this comment trigger the memory. It's weird to think that there are people out there that I am blood related to, and we don't know each other at all. This is me. I have siblings I have never met. Me too. A father, a sister, and a brother. It's weird, isn't it? My dad had a kid when he was in the army, stationed in Germany. He and the mom agreed to never look each other up. I have an older brother. I don't know his name, where he is, if he's even alive now. That one Jango Fett action figure I buried in the sand when I was like 6. He's still out there, somewhere. A future archaeologist will find it. At that point it will be priceless. A freshman history major will insist that it's an artifact of great religious significance. Mozart is buried somewhere in Vienna's St. Mark's Cemetery. The exact location is unknown. The current monument and grave are the results of an educated guess. Meanwhile, Genghis Khan's burying location is completely unknown because those who knew were killed and those who killed them were killed as well to keep the secret. Is this the plot from a Nicolas Cage movie? International Treasure has a nice ring to it. Some dude in Hollywood just did a line of cocaine, and read this. In 15 minutes he is going to pitch it and make millions of dollars. You, however, will get my upvote. At any point in time, there are over 1 million people who are in flight. That's 1 million people who are just sitting in the air. That's a fun one to picture if you take the airplane out of the picture and just visualize people lined up sitting in 90-degree angles floating through the sky above you, just blankly staring forward while they're watching a movie. Really big, really ducking scary things lurking at the bottom of the ocean. Or in outer space. I thought it all might be myths until they literally found a giant squid. The video of that squid with the insanely long tentacles freaks me out. It was seen by a camera on an offshore drilling rig if I recall correctly. It's so huge, and it's just staring directly at the ducking camera like, yep, I'm here. Congrats on technological evolution. Now leave. People that are missing that are locked up in close proximity to you. Could you imagine being one of the victims? Every day your captor brings you food and water, does whatever they do to you, then leaves. This goes on for a month or so, then one day they don't stop by with your food. You assume they forgot. Turns out they were caught with another victim at another place but didn't reveal your location. You're trapped in the room until someone discovers you, but it's been this long already, who knows if someone will stumble upon the hideout. You slowly die of dehydration. What a way to go. That's a powerful one. Well done. We know about, say, Joseph Fritzl now, and there's a satisfaction in him being brought to justice. But that didn't solve all other cases. Other people are doing this stuff and we haven't caught them. Cannibals. During my psych rotation in med school, I sat on a case evaluation of a convicted murderer who was obsessed with the smell of human flesh and was worried once he tasted it, he wouldn't be able to stop. Made me wonder how many cannibalistic people we've encountered in our life who spared us because we didn't smell good enough. Now I have an excuse for never showering. Cannibals. Extra seasoning. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. We lost contact 1652. days ago, which is 1,651 days more than the amount of fuel it carried. They're with Amelia Earhart now. Some people out there have a better answer to this question. The bald pilot had plotted similar flight plans on his flight sim at home. The transponder turned off at the exact moment it made a hard left, which just happened to be in the gap in radar coverage between Malaysia and Vietnam. The flap that was found was locked into a position that indicated it was a controlled water landing. There was no massive debris field that would be expected with any high-speed plane crash into the water, which suggests it is sitting on the bottom of the ocean intact. This isn't proof, but very strong circumstantial evidence that this was a controlled and calculated action. The atoms that made up the very first life form on Earth. Whoa, that's a good one. And the possibility that some of those atoms are part of you. Or maybe you just shit one out yesterday without knowing. Every bizarre thing that's ever been created as a prop in a movie or TV show. Somewhere there's a treasure trove of the most ridiculous shit, collecting dust in a dank prop closet. Every day, someone in the world takes the world's biggest poop for that day. Sometimes I wonder if they have any idea. Other times I wonder if it was me. It's probably the same 600 pounds guy every day. Black holes. How many people are out there, right now, at this moment, ducking? Not sure if this answers the question, but here we go. A small minor event that potentially will change the lives of several people slowly over the next 10-20 years. It could be an invention, an accident, someone being ill, job interview, a breakup, etc. Anything at all that could have profound effects later down the line. And the weirdest part is, we'll probably have zero idea of what it was. Very few things can be traced back to a single moment, and even if you could, there'd probably be no real way of knowing whether things would have shaken out in mostly the same way regardless. I'm sure there's some kind of tomb ancient thing that's buried somewhere that hasn't been discovered yet. It doesn't even have to be anything crazy, just like a super old pot or something. In Egypt, there are so many buried tombs and palaces that they've largely stopped digging. The country doesn't have the resources to guard, conserve and preserve all the sites and resulting artifacts once they are dug up. This is true. There was a project started to try to build an underground metro system in Alexandria, but it was scrapped as soon as they found that every time they dug up into the ground, they found a ton of ancient artifacts. It's now said that there's a whole ancient city laying there under modern day Alexandria. How cool is that? They never caught the Zodiac killer, and if he was in his 20s then he'll be in his 60s at best RN. What about the serial killers who were never caught and just died? Like, imagine if the Zodiac was killed in a vehicle accident, or had a stroke, but was so good at what he did that there was no traces of his killings. Years and years of chasing after someone who died decades ago. 1 meteor. My family has this metaphor from an old lengthy conversation we had on a holiday weekend years ago, where somewhere out there is a meteor with your name on it. It's not an actual meteor, it's a metaphorical one. One day, you'll get hit by this meteor, and it'll kill you. It might be the photon that penetrates your skin and causes that one mutation that gives you skin cancer that metastasizes and shuts you down forever. It may be that one burger at the end of a long series of burgers that's just a little bit too much. Maybe it's a virus or bacteria, or a grizzly bear, or an extra drink at a bar. Somewhere, it's got your name on it. Maybe you and it aren't even headed towards each other right now, but one day, courses will change, you'll close range, and then it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. Your family really knows how to have fun on vacation. When my folks were getting ready to retire, they built a cabin in the woods near the city where they grew up. We go up there and hang out with them for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Sometimes we get aunts and uncles and cousins too. We have long talks, go on walks in the woods and bird watch. Sometimes we plink around with little guns or play board games or putter around in my dad's wood shop. Honestly, it's ducking great, and every girlfriend I've taken has been jealous of how great my family is. I am super lucky to be a part of it. So, like, the vastness of space is absolutely overwhelming, but I think I can go a little closer to home. There's a summer camp orphanage in Zmajka, Poland, where I worked at when I was younger. It has children there full time, but it's more so filled in the summer. The camp has a bunch of cabins, A very old swimming pool, orchards filled with about a dozen different kinds of fruit, nature trails, and it's all in the Polish countryside filled with rolling hills and mountains. It's peaceful there. It's also crazy at times, but it's beautiful too. It's something that I try to think about from time to time, so I don't forget that places like that exist, even though it's far away from my current life. Those Amazonian tribes that have no contact with the modern world. Every single super small detail in someone's life can completely change history. For example, you just barely miss a green light and now have to stop. Because of you not making it through the green light, you affect the positioning of other cars later in your commute. Two of those cars get upset at each other because one cut the other off. The person who got cut off lays on horn and flips the bird. When the person who received the bird gets home, they're super short-tempered and as a result say some things to their SO that they shouldn't have, which winds up being the nail in the coffin of a divorce. Remarriages happen. New kids are brought into the world, all because you missed a green light. This is a butterfly effect. Someone who is exactly compatible to you and would love you the most anyone ever could. There's someone out there like that. You might never meet them. I've thought that some, but then it's usually replaced with the more realistic thought they'll just find someone else. People serving life sentences, or near that, in prison. I'm fascinated by prison documentaries, and saw one this weekend, or at least clips from it, about San Quentin that was filmed the year I was born. I'm in my mid-30s, and it struck me that more than one of the people profiled is likely still serving time all these years later. Also, people who have unjustly been convicted of crimes and are still in there after decades. I read a news story about one of these guys a year or two ago and now I think about this all the time. Some guy gets put away for murder in the 80s while I'm a kid watching Transformers. I get older, have wild teenage and college experiences. He's just in there the whole time. I bum around the world, watch sunsets, climb mountains. He's still in there. I fall in love, get married, have kids. He's still in there. I've gone completely bald and my beard is mostly grey. Innocence Project finally convinces the prison system they ducked up and they let him out. Here's some money. Sorry about your entire ducking life. There are more out there. There's a ducking car floating out there in space. It's pretty weird when you think about it. I was thinking about that the other day, like, sometime, maybe in thousands of years, maybe tomorrow, something will come across that car and be fascinated by it. It's so obviously not natural they'd have to know it was made by some alien. Just imagine you're chilling in your 2X80 spaceship or whatever, hauling spice from Andromeda and you just see a ducking car fly past you, with a little man inside of that. You'd be like, what ducking crazy bastard left this thing just flying around in a commercial nav route? Is it even ours? Holy shit, it isn't. What the hell is this thing? We might be some crazy ancient race of aliens to some crazy ancient race of aliens. Just boggles my mind. House centipedes. Had one crawling in my beard while I was trying to fall asleep a few months ago. Biggest nope of my life. I had a hard time falling asleep for a solid month after that. There's probably someone that I went to school with that's turned into a pedophile. Somewhere out there is a book or film or song or artwork that will absolutely and irrevocably change your life when you discover it. More than one. If you're lucky, and you probably have no idea it exists yet. You might have heard about it in passing, but dismissed it as not really for you. You might even have already experienced it, but you were distracted or tired, or it just wasn't the right moment for it to hit you the way it will later. When all of a sudden you view everything through the lens of this one piece of art and everything just makes sense. So you've got that to look forward to. I find it crazy that the woman I will marry one day is out there living her own life with her own ambitions and her own dreams. One day, somewhere, somehow, we'll cross paths and that will be that. I might know her now. I might not. I guess I'll never know until it's time. Then she can tell me about her life that I am imagining right now. Everybody poops. That guy you hate, poops. Your boss, your friends, your family, poops. Your crush, poops. The richest billionaire, the poorest pauper, poops. It cannot be escaped. Everyone who has ever lived and died, poops. The amount of nuclear weapons lost or unaccounted for throughout the world. Uncontacted tribes. Mind blowing to me, we can look at them from space with a camera and they have no clue. It makes me wonder who's watching the rest of us in the same way. Jeff Goldblum just now as we speak might sip some tea with his robe on and look out the window thinking about is anyone thinking about him, and he ends up being right. Whenever I am going to shave, I assume someone else in the world is going to shave, so I always say, I am going to shave too. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.